I found the first secret in Uncle Robert's basement the day after his funeral. My hands shook as the locksmith popped open the filing cabinet my family had desperately tried to keep me away from. Inside was a newspaper clipping of a fatal hit-and-run, a damaged silver Buick, and a dead woman named Sarah Martinez. The car in the photo was Uncle Robert's, the man who raised me like a daughter, whom I thought could do no wrong. If you've ever discovered that the person you loved most was hiding something unforgivable, you understand that moment when your entire world shifts. Let me tell you about the day I realized my family's love came with conditions and how far they'd go to protect a secret that wasn't theirs to keep. My name is Maya Chen. 3 weeks ago, I buried the only father figure I've ever really known. Uncle Robert took me in when I was 16 after my parents died in a car crash on Highway 18. For 12 years, he was my rock, my compass, my safe harbor. Now, at 28, I find myself standing alone in his empty Portland craftsman home, surrounded by the remnants of a life I thought I knew. The funeral had been exactly what Uncle Robert would have wanted: dignified, modest, and no unnecessary fuss. My Aunt Linda, his sister, had been oddly tense throughout the service, clutching her handkerchief with white knuckles whenever someone mentioned what a good man her brother had been. My cousin Jake kept checking his phone, as if waiting for important news rather than mourning his uncle. I noticed these things but dismissed them as grief. We all process loss differently, I told myself. As a social worker who specializes in trauma counseling, I should know better than anyone. But something felt wrong the moment I stepped into Uncle Robert's house after the service. The air felt charged, like the atmosphere before a thunderstorm. My Aunt Linda and cousin Jake had insisted on accompanying me. "We're family," Aunt Linda had said. "We should go through Robert's things together." What she really meant became clear when I mentioned clearing out his basement office. "Oh, honey," she'd said, placing her hand on my arm with trembling fingers. "That's junk down there, old tax files and broken furniture. Nothing is worth your time." Jake had nodded too eagerly. "I'll take care of that part," he'd offered. "You focus on his personal items, the stuff with sentimental value." Every time I moved toward the basement door that afternoon, one of them materialized beside me with distractions. Aunt Linda suddenly remembered a photo album I absolutely had to see. Jake found an old watch of Uncle Robert's that might have been meant for me. The breaking point came when Jake suggested we donate everything sight unseen to charity. This was the same cousin who once spent 3 hours arguing over a $5 garage sale lamp with an elderly neighbor. The same cousin who itemized Christmas gifts to ensure he wasn't getting shortchanged. Now he wanted to give away Uncle Robert's entire life without even looking. My chest burned with suspicion. That night, after they finally left, I sat alone in Uncle Robert's living room, nursing a glass of his favorite whiskey. The house creaked and settled around me, as if it too were hiding something. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "Don't worry about coming by tomorrow. Linda and I will handle everything. Get some rest." I took a long sip of whiskey, the amber liquid burning my throat. Why were they so desperate to keep me out of that basement? Uncle Robert had raised me since I was 16. When my parents' car veered off Highway 18 into a ravine, it was Uncle Robert who identified their bodies. Uncle Robert, who helped me pack my childhood bedroom, Uncle Robert, who sat beside me through nightmares and college applications and my first heartbreak. "Family protects family," he'd always said. It was his mantra, repeated so often it had become part of my DNA. Now, staring at the basement door across the living room, I wondered what exactly my family was protecting, and from whom. Morning came with determination. I called in sick to the community center where I counsel at-risk youth, then made another call to a locksmith. If there were locks in that basement that my key didn't open, I needed to know why. The locksmith arrived at 10 a.m., a middle-aged man with kind eyes who didn't ask questions when I explained I had lost the key to my late uncle's filing cabinet. Jake had texted twice already, saying he would be over by noon to help sort things. The locksmith worked quickly. The filing cabinet opened with a soft click that echoed in the dusty basement like a gunshot. My heart hammered as I pulled out the first folder. 20-year-old newspaper clippings, headlines that made my stomach drop. "Local mother killed in hit and run, Police seek driver in fatal accident. Family pleads for witnesses. Sarah Martinez, age 34, mother of two. The photos showed a damaged car, silver paint, a specific dent pattern, and a license plate partially visible. My blood turned to ice. I knew that car, Uncle Robert's old Buick that got totaled when I was 8. The same car that mysteriously vanished from our driveway one night, never to be mentioned again. Deeper in the files, car repair estimates dated 3 days after the accident, insurance claims that were suddenly withdrawn, and then, family letters. Aunt Linda's handwriting. We can't let Maya know about this. She's been through enough. I sat on that basement floor for hours, shaking. The man who sang me lullabies and taught me to ride a bike had killed someone's mother. And my entire family, the people who claimed to love me, had helped him hide it. But the worst part? Sarah Martinez died on Highway 18, the same road where my parents were killed 8 years later. The coincidence felt like a physical blow. What if Uncle Robert's guilt made him drink more? What if his reckless driving that night was because he was haunted by what he had done? A terrible thought formed in my mind, one I couldn't push away no matter how hard I tried. What if Uncle Robert had something to do with my parents' accident too? The sound of a key in the front door upstairs jolted me back to reality. I quickly shoved the files into my bag, my fingers numb with shock. Jake's voice called out from above. "Maya, you hear? Mom is worried about you." I took a deep breath, smoothed my hair, and climbed the stairs. Time to perform my life. "Hey," I said, emerging from the basement with what I hoped was a casual smile. Looking through some old photo albums, I found some. Jake's eyes darted to my bag, then to the basement door. "Did you find anything interesting?" "Just memories," I said, the lie bitter on my tongue. Over the next few days, I maintained a careful facade. I helped sort through Uncle Robert's clothes for donation. I nodded along as Aunt Linda reminisced about what a caring brother he'd been. I pretended not to notice how Jake kept finding reasons to go into the basement alone. But at night, in the privacy of my apartment, I spread the stolen files across my living room floor like pieces of a shattered mirror, each fragment reflecting a different angle of the uncle I thought I knew. Police reports. Witness statements describe a silver Buick speeding away from the scene. A statement from Sarah Martinez's young daughter, who had been waiting for her mother to pick her up from dance class when the accident happened. For weeks, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every family photo felt like a lie, but I kept thinking about Sarah's children, mentioned in the articles. They deserved to know what happened to their mom. 20 years of wondering if today would be the day someone confessed or was caught. 20 years of an empty chair at holiday dinners. I began researching Sarah Martinez online, hungry for any information that might help me understand what to do next. Her obituary mentioned 2 children, Miguel, who would be about 30 now, and Emma, 22. There was little else to find until I stumbled upon a recent community college newsletter, a graduation photo. Emma Martinez, nursing program with honors. I stared at her face for a long time. She had her mother's eyes. The article mentioned she worked part-time at Riverstone Coffee downtown while finishing her clinical rotations. My heart stopped. I knew that coffee shop. I went there almost every morning before work. I scrolled through my phone's photo gallery in disbelief. There she was, in the background of a selfie I'd taken with a coworker 3 months ago. The barista with the warm smile who always remembered my order. Oat milk latte, extra shot. I'd been buying coffee from the daughter of the woman my uncle killed, and she had no idea who I was. The realization left me breathless. The universe had a sick sense of humor, or maybe it was karma, guiding me toward the truth I needed to face. The next morning, I walked into Riverstone Coffee with shaking hands. Emma was at the counter, her dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, and a silver name tag glinting under the pendant lights. "The usual?" she asked when I approached, already reaching for a cup. I nodded, unable to speak. As she worked the espresso machine, I noticed a small tattoo on her wrist, a date, October 17th, the date her mother died. "Nice tattoo," I said, my voice barely audible above the steaming milk. She glanced down as if surprised to find it there. "Thanks, it's for my mom. She passed away when I was little." "I'm sorry," I said, meaning it more than she could understand. Emma shrugged with practiced nonchalance. It was a long time ago, hit-and-run driver, they never caught who did it. She handed me my latte, our fingers brushing. They never caught who did it, echoed in my head like a church bell. 20 years of injustice contained in 6 simple words. I found myself returning to Riverstone Coffee day after day, watching Emma, gathering courage. Sometimes we made small talk about the weather or her nursing studies. Once, she mentioned her brother Miguel was a police officer now. Funny how life works out, she'd said. He became a cop because of what happened to Mom. My stomach twisted painfully at that revelation. While I was gathering courage to decide what to do about Emma, Aunt Linda called with news that couldn't wait. Uncle Robert's will was being read that Friday. My presence was essential. The law office was small and smelled of lemon polish and old books. Jake and Aunt Linda were already seated when I arrived, both dressed as if for another funeral. The lawyer, Mr. Hartwell, was a colleague of Uncle Robert's. They'd golfed together for years, apparently. "Before we begin," Mr. Hartwell said, adjusting his glasses, "Robert left specific instructions about this meeting." He produced an envelope with my name written in Uncle Robert's familiar handwriting. He asked that Maya read this privately before we proceed. Aunt Linda's face tightened. "Is that really necessary? We're family. There shouldn't be any secrets." The irony nearly made me laugh. I took the envelope to a small adjoining office. Inside was a letter and a key. The letter was dated 3 weeks before Uncle Robert died. "Maya, if you're reading this, I've finally run out of time. The cancer won after all. Yes, cancer. I never told you because I refused treatment. Some might call it suicide by inaction. I call it justice. 20 years ago, I made a terrible mistake. I was driving home from a dinner where I'd had too much to drink. I hit someone, a young mother. I panicked and drove away. The weight of that moment has defined my life ever since. I've enclosed a key to a safety deposit box at First National Bank. Inside is everything you need to know, including access to an account I've maintained for years. The money was meant for Sarah Martinez's children. I've added to it steadily, but I never dared to come forward. I planned to confess everything after you graduated from college, but then your parents died on the same highway where I took Sarah's life. The coincidence seemed too cruel to burden you with. Each year, I found another reason to delay the truth. Whatever you choose to do with this information is right. If you go to the police, I understand. If you give the money to her children, I'm grateful. If you burn it all and never speak my name again, I've earned it. I loved you like my own daughter, Maya. That wasn't a lie. Uncle Robert. I read the letter 3 times, tears blurring the words. He knew. All this time, he knew exactly what he'd done, and he'd chosen to die rather than face it. But there was something else nagging at me. The timing didn't make sense. If Uncle Robert had been planning to confess, why would Jake and Aunt Linda be so desperate to keep me away from his papers? Why the secrecy if Uncle Robert himself wanted the truth to come out? I returned to the main office, the letter tucked safely in my purse alongside the key. Mr. Hartwell proceeded with the will reading. Most of Uncle Robert's estate was split between me, Jake, and Aunt Linda. His house went to me, since Maya is the only one without a home of her own, the will specified. Jake's face darkened at that. I was counting on selling that house, he muttered. Mr. Hartwell cleared his throat. There's one more item. Robert maintained a separate account at First National Bank. The will states that Maya has full discretionary control over these funds, approximately $450,000. Aunt Linda gasped. Jake's head snapped up. What separate account? Jake demanded. He never mentioned any separate account. Mr. Hartwell looked uncomfortable. It appears to have been established 20 years ago. Regular deposits were made. The will is very clear that Maya alone determines what happens to these funds. I understood then. This was the money Uncle Robert had been saving for Sarah's children, and Jake knew about it somehow. That's what he had been searching for in the basement, not just evidence of the hit and run, but proof of this account. As we left the lawyer's office, Jake cornered me in the parking lot. "We need to talk about that money," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Uncle Robert wasn't in his right mind toward the end. We should split it 3 ways. I looked at my cousin, really looked at him. How long have you known Jake? His expression flickered. Know what? About Sarah Martinez, about what Uncle Robert did. Jake glanced around nervously. Keep your voice down, this isn't the place. When did you find out? I pressed. He sighed. About a year ago, I overheard him talking to Mom about making things right, about a confession letter he was writing to you. I found the account statements in his desk while looking for stamps. And you decided the money should be yours instead. Jake's face hardened. He owed us, Maya. Do you know how many family vacations we canceled because he insisted on having you for the holidays? How many times has my college fund been tapped to pay for your therapy after your parents died? That money should stay in the family. I stepped back, physically repulsed. That money was meant for the family of the woman he killed, the woman whose children grew up without a mother. It was an accident, Jake hissed. And it was 20 years ago. Those people have moved on. Why dig it all up now? I thought of Emma, her mother's death date tattooed on her wrist like a permanent reminder. No, I said. They haven't moved on. They've learned to live with the questions. That night, I visited First National Bank. The safety deposit box contained exactly what Uncle Robert had promised. Detailed records of the account, his original confession drafted years ago but never sent, and a sealed envelope labeled, "For Sarah's Children." It also contained something unexpected, a USB drive. Back at home, I plugged it into my laptop with trembling fingers. Video files appeared, each labeled with a date. With growing horror, I realized Uncle Robert had been recording himself for years, talking about the accident and processing his guilt. In the final video, recorded weeks before his death, Uncle Robert looked directly into the camera. His face was gaunt, his eyes were hollow with pain. I've spent 20 years as a coward, he said. I killed a woman and drove away. I let her children grow up without answers. I convinced myself I was protecting Maya by keeping silent, especially after her parents died. But the truth is, I was protecting myself. He paused, breathing laboriously. The cancer was clearly taking its toll. Jake found out about the money last year. He's been pressuring me to change my will, to leave the account to him instead. He doesn't understand what that money represents. It's not an inheritance, it's a debt that can never truly be paid. My breath caught. So Jake had known for much longer than he admitted, and he had tried to steal money meant for Sarah's children. Maya, if you're watching this, Uncle Robert continued, I'm sorry for leaving you with this burden, but I know your heart. You'll do what's right even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult, it's what I've always admired most about you. The video ended, his face freezing on screen. I sat in silence, tears streaming down my cheeks. Uncle Robert had been right about one thing. I knew exactly what I needed to do. The next morning, I called in sick again. I made 2 appointments, one with Detective Sanchez at the Portland Police Department and another with Miguel Martinez, Emma's brother. The police officer became a cop because of what happened to his mother. Detective Sanchez was a woman in her 50s with shrewd eyes and a no-nonsense manner. I placed Uncle Robert's confession letter on her desk alongside the newspaper clippings and repair receipts. My uncle killed Sarah Martinez 20 years ago, I said, my voice steadier than I had expected. I have evidence, including his video confession. She studied me carefully. You understand you're under no obligation to report this. The statute of limitations on hit and run is much shorter than 20 years. You could have kept this to yourself. I thought of Emma's tattoo, of Miguel choosing a career to solve the mystery of his mother's death. Some debts don't expire, I said simply. Meeting Miguel Martinez was harder. He looked so much like his sister, the same thoughtful eyes, the same careful way of choosing words. He was in uniform when I met him at a park near the police station. Thank you for agreeing to see me, I began, my voice threatening to break. My name is Maya Chen, my uncle was Robert Chen, and 20 years ago he killed your mother. Miguel's face remained impressively composed, though his hands gripped the bench between us until his knuckles whitened. I told him everything, about finding the evidence, about Uncle Robert's confession, about the account he'd maintained for Miguel and Emma all these years. Why now? He asked when I finished. Why come forward after all this time? Because you deserve to know, I said. Because your mother deserves justice, even if it's delayed. and because secrets like this poison everyone they touch. Miguel was silent for a long moment. Do you know how many times I've imagined finding the person who killed my mom? How many scenarios have I played out in my head? He looked at me directly. None of them ended with the killer's niece doing the right thing. I'm not looking for forgiveness, I said. Good, he replied without heat, because I'm not ready to give it. We sat in silence for several minutes before he spoke again. Will you tell Emma, or should I? I think it should come from you, I said, but I'd like to be there when you do, if that's okay. I owe her that much. You don't owe us anything, Miguel said firmly. Your uncle did. The meeting with Emma happened 3 days later. Miguel arranged to meet at their father's house, a small, well-kept bungalow on the east side. I arrived early, heart thundering in my chest. Emma's face when she recognized me from the coffee shop was a study in confusion. When understanding dawned that the regular customer with the oat milk latte was connected to her mother's death, her expression hardened. You knew who I was all this time, she asked, her voice breaking. You watched me make your coffee knowing your uncle killed my mom. No, I said quickly. I only found out after he died. I've been coming to your coffee shop for over a year, but I had no idea who you were until 3 weeks ago. Miguel guided us through the conversation, his police training evident in the calm, measured way he asked questions and managed emotions, including his own. I explained everything, just as I had with him, holding nothing back. When I mentioned the account Uncle Robert had maintained, Emma looked up sharply. Money, he thought he could pay off his guilt. I don't think that was it, I said carefully. I think he knew nothing could make up for what he took from you, but he wanted to give you something, anything, to acknowledge the debt he could never repay. I slid the sealed envelope across the table, the one labeled, for Sarah's children. Emma stared at it for a long moment before Miguel reached over and opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. To Sarah Martinez's children. Words cannot express the depth of my regret for taking your mother from you. What I did was unforgivable. I made a terrible choice in a moment of panic that changed all our lives forever. I've thought of you every day for 20 years. I've wondered what kind of people you've become, what challenges you've faced without your mother's guidance. I've imagined Sarah watching you grow up, missing all the milestones parents cherish. The enclosed account information provides access to funds I've saved over the years. It's not compensation, nothing could be. Consider it an acknowledgement of the debt I owe, a debt that extends far beyond money. I don't ask for forgiveness. I only ask that you use these resources to build the lives your mother would have wanted for you. Perhaps knowing the truth will bring some small measure of peace. With deepest remorse. Robert Chen. Emma read the letter twice, then passed it to her father, who had been quietly listening from the corner of the room. His hands trembled as he took it. $450,000, Miguel said, looking at the account details. That's a lot of guilt. He added it every month, I explained. It started with the insurance money he would have received for the car if he'd reported the accident, then $500 every month after that, plus interest. Emma shook her head slowly. I don't know if I want his money. It's your decision, I said, but whatever you choose, I want you to know I'm sorry. Not just for what my uncle did, but for the fact that my family helped hide it. You deserved better. The room fell silent. Finally, Emma spoke. Did you know I became a nurse because of my mom? She was studying nursing when she died, found her textbooks in the attic when I was 15. She looked down at her hands. I always felt like I was finishing what she started. My throat tightened. She'd be proud of you. You can't know that, Emma said, not unkindly. You never met her. She was right, of course. I was another person making assumptions about a woman whose life had been cut short by my uncle's cowardice. The legal aftermath was surprisingly quick. Since Uncle Robert was deceased, there were no criminal charges to file. The case was officially closed with his confession, bringing a formal resolution that had eluded the Martinez family for 2 decades. The personal aftermath was messier. Aunt Linda refused to speak to me after learning I'd gone to the police. Jake faced charges for attempting to access the account after Uncle Robert's death, financial fraud that would likely result in probation rather than jail time, but a permanent mark on his record nonetheless. I moved into Uncle Robert's house, though I wasn't sure how long I would stay. Every room held memories that now seemed suspect. Had he been thinking about Sarah Martinez when he taught me to drive? When will he proudly display my college diploma on his wall? When he walked me through mortgage applications for a house I never quite managed to afford? 2 months after the truth came out, Emma texted me. It was the first contact we had had since that difficult meeting. "Can we meet? Coffee?" We chose a different cafe this time, neutral territory. Emma looked tired but composed when she arrived, sliding into the seat across from me. "We decided what to do with the money," she said without preamble. "Half goes to a scholarship fund in my mom's name at the nursing school. The rest of Miguel and I are splitting. He's using his part for his daughter's college fund. I'm paying off my student loans and buying a small house." "That sounds like a good plan," I said carefully, unsure why she was telling me this. Emma traced a pattern on the table's surface. "I wanted you to know because you made a hard choice. You could have burned those files and kept the money. No one would have known." "I would have known," I said simply. She nodded. "That's why I wanted to see you, to say thank you for not being like the rest of your family." The words stung and soothed simultaneously. I wasn't like the rest of my family, and that knowledge was both liberating and isolating. "Your brother still hates me," I observed. Emma's lips quirked in a half-smile. "Miguel hates everyone until they prove themselves, but he respects what you did." We sat in silence for several minutes before I worked up the courage to ask the question that had been haunting me. "Do you think it's possible to love someone who did something terrible?" Emma considered this. "I think people are complicated. Your uncle did something unforgivable, then spent 20 years trying to atone for it. Does that make him good or bad?" She shrugged. "Maybe both." I thought about Uncle Robert's letter, about his final confession. "I loved you like my own daughter, Maya." That wasn't a lie. Perhaps that was the most difficult truth to accept, that the man who raised me, who taught me about integrity and compassion, had failed to live by his own principles in the most profound way possible. And yet, his love for me had been real. His desire to protect me had been real, even if misguided. "I'm selling the house," I told Emma suddenly. "Uncle Robert's house. It doesn't feel right to live there anymore." She nodded as if this made perfect sense. "What will you do instead?" she asked. "Start over somewhere new, somewhere without so many ghosts." 6 months later, I closed on a small craftsman bungalow across town. As I unpacked boxes in my new kitchen, my phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Passed my board exams. Officially an RN now." I smiled and texted back congratulations. Our relationship wasn't friendship exactly, but something unique, a connection forged through shared pain and difficult truths. The Martinez family had decided not to pursue a wrongful death lawsuit against Uncle Robert's estate. 20 years is a long time to stay angry, Mr. Martinez had said when Miguel consulted him. "Let's use the money for something good instead." I kept only one photo of Uncle Robert in my new house, not the posed family portraits or the graduation pictures, but a candid shot taken when I was about 17. We were planting a garden together, both of us covered in dirt, laughing at some forgotten joke. I chose it because it captured a genuine moment between us, one untainted by the knowledge of what came before or after. Sometimes I talked to him in my head, asking questions he could no longer answer. "Why didn't you turn yourself in right away? Did you ever consider what Sarah's children were going through? Did the weight of your secret ultimately lead to your death?" I never got those answers, of course, but I did learn something important from the whole ordeal. The people we love most are capable of terrible things. Family loyalty is valuable, but not when it comes at the expense of justice. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is speak a painful truth, even when every instinct tells you to protect the people you love. The last time I visited Uncle Robert's grave, I brought 2 bouquets, one for him, and one to place at Sarah Martinez's memorial across town afterward. As I stood between the 2 markers, I realized that we're all connected in ways we don't always understand. My uncle's worst mistake had shaped the Martinez family for 20 years. It had shaped me too, though I hadn't known it. I don't call what I did revenge. I call it justice, delayed but not denied. The truth may have shattered the image of the family I thought I had, but it allowed me to build something more honest in its place. Something I could actually live with. Family protects family. That was Uncle Robert's mantra. What he never taught me, what I had to learn on my own, was that true protection sometimes means refusing to be complicit in a lie, even when the truth breaks your heart. Have you ever discovered that someone you loved wasn't who you thought they were? How did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about family secrets, difficult choices, and finding your way to the truth.